Good afternoon and God's peace to all. Just figured I'd give you a little update, whatever, return message after my return from the sabbatical that I had from August 20th until just this last week. First of all, I want to express my appreciation to the congregation for granting this time for Gwen and me to spend some time together and just relax from the duties that I've been called into and in the office of the ministry and serving this congregation. And one of the greatest benefits I have of going on a sabbatical, which this is my second one now, which is every 4 years, is the appreciation I feel or is evidenced in the congregation allowing me to take this time to step away from the day-to-day duties. And it's been a real blessing to know that the congregation cares enough about me, but ultimately it's not about me, but me in the position that God has placed me into, but the care for the church, because all members, including me and all of you, healthy members make a healthy body. And if the board recognized through time, whether it was Pastor Ron or myself, or in a couple years, if God grants grace, to see that day that Pastor Paul would go on a sabbatical, it's evidence that the congregation, the board, appreciates the benefits of having a pastor rest for a while for the benefit of the congregation. But that's that. I just want to tell you a little bit about the time that we did spend. It was our intention to spend a fair amount of time on the road, a road trip around this great state of Washington, as well as do some things at home. Job jar things that just continue to pile up, and we don't have the time or the energy or the whatever to get these things done. So first of all, it was our intention, like I said, to make a trip around the state. We were going to start by going to the Palouse, which Gwen and I have always wanted to go there and see that beautiful country that we've only seen in calendar pictures, and then head up through the Grand Coulee area, go to the dam there, and then the North Cascades National Park, Mount Rainier National Park, and wind our way back home. Well, that was our intention. My mother always used to say when we were young growing up, and she probably still says it, is that we plan, but God decides. So our first part of the trip was going to be, as I said, the Palouse, but due to the Medical Lake fire, the fires around Spokane, that was not possible, or it just would not have been worth going into that smoky-filled area to do some sightseeing. So we ended up going to our daughters and her husbands, Marcus and Lana's, for 4 or 5 days or so in the Tri-Cities area, and then we returned back home. We did some research on the North Cascades National Park. They were also affected by fires across the border up into British Columbia, and there was some time there that the park was closed. Highway 20 was totally closed, and then they had opened it to pilot traffic only. You would have to follow a pilot car through the park, and then there were some days that the highway was open, but only as a thoroughfare. You couldn't stop anywhere. You couldn't do anything along the way. So we just decided, let's just do it. I'm a planner. I had planned the trip. We had started, like I said, at Palouse, going up to Grand Coulee. I had dropped pins in a Google Map type thing, and all the way I had every trip planned and our motels and all this kind of stuff where we're going to be. And when that Eastern Washington trip sort of fell aside, I just said, let's just go and we'll just do whatever happens. Well, a trip for me and doing whatever happens is just not my thing. But we decided to do it. We took off drove up 97 from Goldendale up to Yakima and up to Winthrop, checking the status of the North Cascades Highway the whole time. And it was beautiful, clear, gorgeous weather in Winthrop, right on the east side of the park. So we decided to go through. Well, as we were going through, everything was shut down. All the trailheads, all the viewpoints, with the exception of Lake Diablo, that was open because there's no trailheads there. So it was sort of a disappointment. We basically just drove through the park and shot a few pictures out the window, and if we could pull over on the wide spot of the road, we could take a photo, but all of the viewpoints and everything, trailheads were closed due to a fire danger. So we continued on and motored on south. We were going to go to Mount Rainier National Park, which we did. We went on the east side of Mount Rainier National Park, Highway 420. And as we were driving along through the tunnel of trees, neither Gwen or I saw any sign for the visitor center, which is Sunrise Visitor Center on that side of the mountain. And we got all the way back through down into, I don't know, is that Morton or somewhere down there? And he said, well, we missed everything. So what are we going to do? I guess we'll just drive home. So we were going to go home through Mount St. Helens, that area there. That highway was closed. So we turned around, went on Highway 12, all the way to I-5, and just went home. A little bit of a disappointment all the way. And I mean, we spent time together. It was good as far as that went, but as I was disappointed, not really angry about the situation, because I knew what we were up against. We had looked forward enough to looked on the internet enough to know that the situation wasn't really good for seeing the sights or doing some little easy hikes there in North Cascades, but disappointing nonetheless. And as I thought about it, my disappointment of not being able to see a few things on my time off is quite small in comparison to people who have lost their homes due to fire or floods or hurricanes or whatever the situation is. And in that through all these things, we should remember, as my mother said, we plan, but God decides. So we came back home and did a few more things around the house, got a lot of things done. I turned into a mechanic and an electrician and a plumber and a trim carpenter and everything during that, as well as a landscaper, I guess, during those weeks off. And then Gwen, for many years, has wanted to go to the observatory in Goldendale. So I had made reservations. You have to make reservations because they limit the size of the group to go through there, so everybody has an opportunity to look through the telescopes. And I'd made a reservation at a motel in Goldendale, and we were all set to go. And we were actually packing our suitcase. This was on a Thursday morning. And Gwen came into the room and she said, I just checked the weather in Goldendale. At home, it was clear, beautiful blue sky, wonderful fall day. Cloudy and raining in Goldendale. So I called the observatory and a young lady answered, and I asked her, what's the situation if it's cloudy and rainy? She said, well, we can't open the dome. There will be no looking through the telescope. You can't see anything anyway because of the clouds. But the presentation is pretty interesting. You'll see some videos, some shots that they've taken through the telescopes at the Goldendale Observatory. So our motel was non-refundable. You get one of those, you go through one of those cheap ticket type things, your motel's non-refundable, so we decided to go. While we were there, the presentation, we were about an hour and a half in, and the what do you call it? The teacher, what do you call it at a state park? Anyway, the person said that, the ranger, a ranger from the back came and said, lo and behold, the clouds have parted, beautiful star-bright sky tonight. And he said, we cut the presentation short and went to the telescopes. We saw Jupiter and Saturn and a nebula and a star, a constellation, and it was very interesting. I'm not really in a into astronomy like Gwen is, but she really wanted to see that. And afterwards we were talking about it, and she said, as she humbled me, she said, I was praying that the clouds would depart, or that they would part, and we would be able to see something. And I thought prior to that, well, maybe I could pray about this, but I just thought, this is so minor. Does God really care if the clouds part so we can see a planet or some stars? And I just thought, it's sort of trivial. I'm just not going to pray about that. Maybe it was because of my disappointment again, and a little bit of frustration. Here we drove, a couple hours away just to spend the night in a motel in Goldendale. I mean, wow, destination hotspot. But as I thought of this, I was reminded of a couple of verses that speak to this, I believe. One is in Matthew chapter 10, the words of Jesus. As Jesus says, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore ye are of more value than many sparrows. And just prior to that, Jesus, he says that if a sparrow falls to the ground, that the Father knows it. Jesus knows us intimately, even to the extent that our hairs on our head are numbered. Peter writes in his epistle, the first epistle, chapter 5, verse 6 and 7, humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Maybe if even the young people among us would get something from this, that don't cease from praying. Paul writes to the Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. Do not ever not pray. And if it's insignificant, if it's minor, if it doesn't really matter in this life, or if God sees fit that it does not come to pass, he's going to sort those things out. But even in the little things in our life, that we would present them to God in our petitions, in our prayers to the Heavenly Father. He knows what's best for us. He cares for us. Our very hairs are numbered, and my hairs are getting less and less every day, and I sort of think of that God he has an easier job with me in that area, because my hairs on my head are getting less. But I'm not making fun of this, but he knows us intimately. He knows our cares. Cast all of our cares. Peter didn't just say, cast all of your spiritual cares on him, but cast all of your cares. If it is your desire to see the stars and the planets at an observatory, pray about it, that it'll work out. And of course, in all of our prayers, we pray, if God so wills. So that's a takeaway, a huge takeaway I had from the time that we spent away from your fellowship. One is that we plan, but God really, he directs our paths. He decides what is best for us. That we would also pray in all things, that we would present our needs, our desires, our wishes to God, and he'll sort that thing out. Another thing I came away from this that would maybe benefit all of us is a verse that we find in the letter to the Hebrews in the 10th chapter, verse 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. Now, some might argue that this is an exhortation of the Hebrew writer to continue to gather together in the midst of persecution, as they were indeed facing great persecution. But I think we can apply it to our lives in this country in this time. Gwen and I, we came to church here in Hockinson a couple times, went to Vancouver once, we were in Tri-Cities once for church, we watched online once. But as we were coming to church for the fall services just this last weekend, was thinking, all these things were going in my mind, and was thinking how good it is, even as the psalmist says, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. How easy it would be to remove ourselves from the fellowship of God's children. How much easier it would be to just stay at home on Sunday morning. If we're so inclined, we'll do a few clicks on the computer mouse and we'll watch online. And if, we're too lazy, we'll just stay in bed today. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not accusing, I'm not being judgmental, trying not to, but the judgment is towards me too, because I felt that even in those times that I could very easily slip into a lazy type of attendance or assembling together. And it's not saying I was doubting my faith, anything like that. It's just as plain as Christians go to church, because that's where they hear the Word of God. That's where they are comforted and strengthened. I appreciate so much Brother Andy as well as Brother Walt always used to say that God has given us this opportunity to gather around His Word, and if it is that particular Sunday, His sacrament, where we receive the comforting words of the gospel, to be strengthened in our faith, and to have fellowship one with another, where we can visit with each other who are in like trials as we are, and in all things looking unto Jesus, the author, the finisher of our faith. So, I'm back in the saddle, as it says. Been here now for a few days. It's as if I never left, really, in a way. And if God so wills, we'll see you more often now than we have in the last 6 weeks. And again, I'm going to close this with a heartfelt thanks to you, my beloved brothers and sisters in faith in this congregation, for granting us the opportunity to spend some time away from our tasks in this congregation, my tasks, and to spend some time together with my wife, which was a really good thing. Just a little back up a little bit. I said, well, I told her this is sort of a trial run on retirement that'll be coming in a few years or whatever for me. And she said, I don't think I'm really ready for that. She wasn't ready to have me at home all the time, underfoot or whatever. So it was a learning experience maybe for us too, that we could keep that in mind when the day of my retirement does come. And that's not coming soon. Don't get all excited about that. It'll be some time yet, but nonetheless, it's a little taste of what retirement would look like. So, God's peace to all. Thank you for listening.